If you want to come to the podium, or you can have the mic right there. It's all up to you. Okay.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. So good to see everybody here. I brought notes, so I'm gonna go on here. Okay. And a shout out to my colleague, Councilmember Mika Owens. You'll be hearing from her later. So this is great. So when Beth McNeil called and said, I just want you to say a few words, like 2 to 3 minutes about STEM and diversity. And she said this conference, this meeting is in collaboration with the Gaskins Foundation. I'm like, oh yes, you don't have to ask me twice. I love Whitney Gaskins. She's a superstar. And her title just speaks volumes. I love her title. She is Associate Dean of Inclusive Excellence and Community Engagement. So I don't know whether you made up that title. I've never heard of that title before, but I said Inclusive Excellence describes you. That is so great. I love that. And she's such a badass. I mean, she PhD in biomedical engineering. This Black woman, PhD in biomedical engineering, and the only Black female teaching faculty at the UC College of Engineering. And so, she's also my soror. I don't know any divine nines in the room, so I know, okay. It's all a sisterhood, right? Okay. I know those deltas always speak up, right? Deltas, you know how it goes with you, right? Delta's always going to speak up. We love you, so that's great. Okay. So I really, I love, and I should say, Delana White is also here, her husband, who is a partner with her in this mission, really to bring more people of color into the STEM field. And I noticed for STEM, Whitney has science, technology, engineering, math, and you add that M for medicine. So she's got STEMM, and some people put that A in it, so STEAM. So all of that, we need more diversity, more inclusion. So I love the fact that Gaskins Foundation hosts that K through 12 Stimulates program to bring more African American students into STEM. It's year round now, and it's free. And you've been doing that for several years. I'm not sure when it started, but I know years ago, back when my son was in high school, we were talking about it, and somehow his schedule, it's like he had some kind of sports and all this kind of stuff, and I'm like, you need to be in Dr. Gaskin's program. But I love the fact that it's there, and it's powerful, and it's bringing our young people in. We've got to start young. We've got to start really with our young people, getting them interested, and so I'm really excited about that. Across the country, STEM jobs are growing 3 times as fast as non-STEM jobs, and the salaries are fantastic. And so as we start trying to tackle things like, Cincinnati has a 26% poverty rate, we're looking at what opportunities can we have. We've got to get our folks into STEM jobs, and so that's really important. The STEM workforce in the U.S. Right now is a little bit dismal. It's 64% white and only 9% Black. So we've got a lot of work to do. When we take a look at women, I spoke to, UC has a Girls in STEM program. I spoke to them maybe 2 years ago. And so I looked up, how are women doing in STEM? And it wasn't good. We're more than half of the population, but only 28% of the STEM workforce. So that's, we've got, and, I won't go through all the, because Beth told me you've got 2 to 3 minutes, so I'm not going to go through all the women, but if you go back to the 1800s, I'm going to talk about this one day, there are women in STEM. There were women doing, programming and, talking about computers back in the 1800s. Women have always been a part of STEM, but we are not part of the STEM workforce. And so we're a small part, so we've got to really grow. The big tech companies like Google, Microsoft, Facebook, and Apple, their hiring rates for African Americans are really low, and some of these companies are as low as 1.5%. We've got to do better. I'm proud to say Cincinnati, though, is all about growth and change, because we need growth and change. We want inclusive growth, like inclusive excellence. So I recently read an article that said, the Queen City is not just about its famous chili and baseball. I thought we were known for so much more than that, but apparently that's what they know us for. Cincinnati is becoming known as a tech hub. we're becoming known as a tech hub here because of work like the Gaskins Foundation, work that UC is doing, work that the regional chamber is doing, work that the city of Cincinnati is doing. From uptown to downtown, Cincinnati is becoming the land of STEM opportunity and growth. The Cincinnati Innovation District, anchored by UC and in collaboration with Ready, they're reporting they are on the move. They're aiming to create 20,000 new jobs and $3 billion in annual economic impact for our region. I mean, that's huge. We are moving forward. With venture capital partners like Cincy Tech Investments and Tech Innovations, they do that to solve all types of problems. I just geek out on their website. I mean, there are companies here that are, I think I'm hitting the computer, I'm sorry about that. There are companies here that are doing things like innovations in cancer treatment, innovations in cardiac, where you can do like these diagnoses that are more powerful, innovation in construction management, like all these things happening, being invested in by companies right here in Cincinnati. And so, I know a lot of you go to Centrifuge, to the pitch contest, for Startup Cincy and all of that. Just lots of good things happening. But there are opportunities for everyone. So at the same time, we have to be really intentional about bringing in people of color. So I'm really, really grateful for Black Tech Week. That's one of the first things I'll talk about. Just mention real quickly, Candace Burkeen and her husband, Brian Burkeen, and Lighthouse Foundation. They've chosen Cincinnati as the home for Black Tech Week. At one time, we didn't know if they were going to move to some other places, but they said they made the commitment, thanks to our mayor, saying, okay, we're going to give you some money because we want to keep you here. And so we're keeping them here in Cincinnati. The impact report for Black Tech Week, and this is from 2022, not even last year. From 2022, the conference brought in $7.8 million to the regional economy during the conference, and that included $6 million in Cincinnati. So that is great, and lots of new jobs. When I was at one of their events, I was asking people where they were from, and I kind of meant neighborhood, but they said, oh yeah, we're from San Francisco, we're from, like Dallas, Texas. They were here from all over the place, and a lot of them said, we want to move into Cincinnati. Like, we didn't know Cincinnati was so cool. And so that is great. So we're having more people, because of conferences like Black Tech Week, that bring more tech folks here, really just more people here, more young people here, and then tech is really big. Of course, they brought in Serena Williams and Issa Rae. Their conference this year is July 16th to 18th. I'm not sure, what stars are coming, but there will be some. The good thing about Black Tech Week, too, I should say, there were a lot of opportunities for young people. I had a lot of friends who were chaperoning high school kids there. I said, what are you all doing? Who are all these people? They're like, oh yeah, we're chaperoning high school kids. So that's really great. They're bringing in the high school and college students in early to hear about tech opportunities, to meet people, make connections, and get excited. Another conference, and this one is starting up, and I don't know if some people know about it, but it's Rob Richardson's Midwest Con. Have you guys heard about Midwest Con? Midwest Con, so let me tell you what Rob, you all know Rob Richardson. He used to be chairman of the board for UC's Board of Trustees. But Midwest Con is a hub innovation, he says, and so he describes it as the mission is to onboard the next generation of disruptors and influencers who are prepared to harness technology for good. So I went to some of their workshops. I'm telling you, I didn't know, like NFTs and all that. I was like, this is Greek. I took out my notebook. I'm writing all the stuff that Rob thought it was really hilarious. He's like, you don't know about this? I'm like, I don't know what an NFT is, how to get an NFT, how do you buy art with NFTs, all this. But it was really, amazing. And so that's coming back. I think he said it's going to be in the fall this year. But again, I met a lot of people from other cities coming to Cincinnati. And they're like, wow, Cincinnati tech, yeah, we are the tech hub. And then has anyone heard of Road Pitch? Road Pitch was actually new this year. There's a young lady, Megan Turner. Yeah. You know Megan, okay. So Megan is a student at the University of Louisville. She's still in school. She's studying engineering. And what she does is she gets, young Black people interested in tech startups, and they go around getting investors. And so she's done it on the East Coast and the West Coast. And this year she said, I need to bring it on home to Cincinnati. So they went to Centrifuge and did Road Pitch. And so it was really, really fun to watch, like all these ideas. And I sat there thinking, that's such a good idea. I wonder why no one ever thought of that. That's really brilliant. So, but now someone has thought of it, and they've got technology. And so Road Pitch is another great thing. So there's just a lot, just in closing, because I know you all got this thinking, I said 2 to 3 minutes, and that's probably over. But I'm just so excited about all the opportunities here, and that you all are here to actually grow tech in Cincinnati. Mark Twain is known, and I really think he's wrong. Everybody said, he really didn't say this, but you know how he said, we think he said, when I die, I want it to be in Cincinnati because everything happens here 10 years later. So I want to say, if he said that, maybe he didn't say it because everybody always debates it, but he's definitely wrong, because now I'm sure he would have said, had he known better, I want to live in Cincinnati. I want to live in Cincinnati because we are all about growth, and not just growth. We are about inclusive excellence. And so everybody, thank you for being here. It's going to be a great, 2-hour session. And Dr. Gaskins, Delano, Gaskins Foundation, Beth, Chamber of Commerce, everybody, and all of you. This is going to be wonderful. And so we're going to keep moving forward, Cincinnati. Thank you so much.
Okay, we're gonna do a tech change, so if you want to chat down here, we're gonna turn the camera.
Hi, I'm Kenya Taylor. I am the KeyBank. I'm the Regional Corporate Responsibility Officer. We were the sponsor for the CDEC in this series, and why? Because it's important. KeyBank has been around for 150 years. We stretch from Maine to Alaska. Yes, we have branches in Alaska, and I'm not trying to be there. We have some in Florida, but they won't let me have that territory. But I do cover Central and Southwest Ohio. As we know, technology still is extremely important. More importantly, diversifying, creating racial, economic, environmental equity. One of the things we focus on at KeyBank is serving those in our communities to ensure that they have opportunities to achieve that. This conference is one way, just one way, but a major way in trying to help create that equity. We know, especially in banking and everything we do, and I love hearing about Cincinnati becoming the hub for technology, because Cincinnati's having a rebirth. And it's pretty exciting to see, and to see that we're becoming the forefront of everything is amazing. And even in our world, with everything that's going on, how many people actually physically go into a bank nowadays? Raise your hand. Okay, so that's many hands, right? So how are people banking? They're doing it, are you going because you have to, or because you like the people in the bank? See, that's the difference. But we have a whole generation coming up that probably have never set foot in the bank. I had a teenager talking to another one, because I do have a teen at home still. And they asked, what do you do when you go to a bank? Because it's foreign to them. They do everything online. They do everything virtually. And they've never been to a bank, even open accounts now. You don't have to physically go into a bank. But you should. Especially when it comes to learning about how you should invest, save, and make sure you're the things that you should be doing. But this is important. And I was so honored and happy when Beth reached out to me to see there's an opportunity for Key to partner and sponsor this, because this is so much needed. And to have this wealth of knowledge, to have the vice mayor here, to have councilwoman here is pretty amazing. You have people in the world, the people who are in the audience who are physically here. It is a pleasure and honor to be here to help support this, to help create growth, to create more equity. And this is all about what KeyBank does, building thriving communities, creating equity, creating opportunity. But without further ado, we're going to introduce who you want to hear, our moderator and councilwoman. Mika D. Owens was elected to City Council in 2021 and is currently the chair of the Climate and Environmental Infrastructure Committee, one of the first local government committees in the nation to prioritize climate change. She also sits on the Budget and Finance Committee and serves as vice chair of the Equitable Growth and Housing Committee. C.M. Owens was born and raised in Avondale. Throughout her childhood, she trained at 7-Star Dragons, where she learned lifelong skills, including self-discipline, hard work, and respect, responsibility, third value. While raising her son Justin as a single mom in Avondale, She also attended Miami University and earned her BS in Mass Communications with a minor in marketing. I don't know how she got time for that, being a single mother, but that just lets you know how bad she is, right? She later returned to school this time at Xavier University, where she earned her MED in Human Resource Development. CMO's personal mantra is to continue to make the Cincinnati community a better place to live, work, and play. She is trying to serve her community, whether through board membership or community outreach. Her firm believes that a community cannot be changed until it has leaders who support its values, led Councilwoman Owens to run for City Council in 2020. Did you say you want to do that again? She believes in selecting leaders who support its values.
Yeah.
CM Owens, to run for City Council in 2020, should dedicate towards working with members of the community to achieve real solutions, and will always advocate for the people of Cincinnati. Pretty amazing here. So without further ado, Councilwoman.
I am just honored to be here. Good morning, everyone. Good morning to our esteemed panelists. When I hear my own bio, it's always like, oh my gosh, yes. But it's consistent, right? It's consistent with wanting to support a community that wants to see great things happen. And it starts in rooms like this. Collaboration, everyone, we get to achieve more. So I'm excited that the city is truly invested in this conversation because absolutely our goal has to be investing in people. And that means attracting and retaining talent and building a city, not only in the built environment that people want to see, but it's the economic environment and conditions, right? And so when we get to work on issues like housing and transportation, all sorts of things, specific to housing and affordability, it's also about making sure we're moving people into wages, good paying wages, that they can afford to live in this city. So thank you again for inviting the city of Cincinnati to be here today. We are here to hear you, right? And so I am going to just read a bio from each of you, esteemed guests who are with us, and thank you for sharing your time. So I'm going to start with Abu Jackson. He's always had a love for math, science, and engineering since his adolescent years. His mother used to question him as to why he would take apart his remote control cars and put them back together again repeatedly. This sparked a passion that led him to many summer engineering camps through his high school years and led him toward the path of an undergraduate engineering degree. Abu holds a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering from the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, and a certificate, let's not get anything started, and a certification of project management from Xavier University in Cincinnati, Ohio. All right. Okay, and these bios are so long, I'm shortening them because you all have many accolades. Kathy Bailey, who is a wonderful addition to the city of Cincinnati as the executive director of Greater Cincinnati Waterworks. Yes, she is the woman of water that leads a water system, yes, that is the #1 water system in the nation. So we love having Kathy. Ms. Bailey is the first woman and African-American woman to lead the utility since its formation 200 years ago. Ooh. She began with the utility in 1992 as a chemist. The following year, Kathy took on the role of water quality and treatment data manager. She later earned several promotions to other key managerial positions, including information technology, help desk administrator, strategic planning, and performance measurement manager and project manager, lots of things. And Kathy annually speaks and participates on panels at the American Waterworks Association and many other industry associations because she is the top expert. Thank you for being with us. And Dr. Sangeeta, she recently left the corporate world after more than 2 decades to launch her own tech startup, Gotara, providing career advice to women in STEM. She has always been very passionate about this topic while growing up in aviation, energy, and tech industries. Gotara provides 24/7 nano-learning programs based on the latest research and insights from influential STEM leaders so we can close the gender gap, important, and give women in STEM a fair advantage. Exactly why we're having this conversation. Thank you for being here. And finally, good girlfriend of mine, I like to say, Tashana Thomas Audible is a dynamic and visionary healthcare executive with a distinguished career spanning over 25 years in the healthcare industry. She has held positions with all of the big companies you can think of: TriHealth, United Healthcare, UC Health, and Humana, where she has consistently demonstrated a keen ability to navigate the complexities of healthcare and has a wealth of expertise in developing and implementing strategic strategies and initiatives to optimize managed care contracts and operations. Tashana currently serves as the Vice President of Managed Care for UC Health. Thank you for being with us. Let's just give them a round of applause. All right, it's rooms like this that I get excited because it's about ideas and conversations and filling in the gaps and, again, creating an ecosystem that is supporting all of us. So this question is for all of you. How can cities leverage diversity in STEM fields to foster innovation and drive economic growth? That's important. Whoever wants to go first. Absolutely.
I think, as you said earlier, that, and the Vice Mayor also said that STEM jobs are important. Why they're important? There's a lot of data that shows us how the number of STEM jobs are increasing in the country or around the world, and we don't have enough talent. The gap is increasing. And it is true here in Cincinnati as well. In many of these fields, we are beginning to actually graduate equal number of men and women in many of the STEM fields. However, when you look at the workforce, the gender gap is huge. And I don't have all the numbers for all diversity gaps, but I bet it is the same story. For women, because within 5 to 7 years, they leave their jobs within 5 to 7 years. And everybody thought that, well, they were leaving because, they're at that age, they want to raise their family. And this was happening under my nose as a senior leader. And when somebody would say she's leaving because she has a 2-year-old or a 5-year-old, I would say, okay, I don't want to ask any more questions. What we have found in our research over the last 4 years, this is behavioral research, not survey. So there is a difference between say and do. So this is do. And what we found was, which busted the myth, that 90+% of the women are being forced out, are being pushed out of their work. And I was shocked to learn that. But as you start talking to the individuals who have been pushed out, they said, yep, that's exactly right. But it was such an embarrassing story that nobody discusses it. Somebody goes from top talent to least effective within 18 months or 12 months. That's how they get pushed out. And because of flexibility or many other reasons. And that is what we want to stop. And the thing that I want to say for STEM jobs, there is a huge talent gap. We can't let that happen. We can't let that happen. And then we need to, as a community in Cincinnati, we need to make sure that we are sending our kids to STEM education in college and in community colleges. Because why? They're lucrative jobs. They are the best jobs possible in the industry. I saw how much money some of the kids make with just 4 years of experience. And so why wouldn't you? So what I would say is okay to work really hard to get those hard courses done and get good credits so we can push our kids into college so they are actually closing the talent gap.
So connecting education to young people is extremely important, and also reminding me of the conversation going back to how we support women in these fields and companies when we're thinking about childcare. Extremely important that we help to retain that talent. Anyone else want to answer that question too?
Sure. I would just think about just the primary education years from K through 12 is very important on creating opportunities for our kids to really get excited about STEM field programs and job outlooks that they can participate in and opportunities. So much, I think, that we focus on, yes, lucrative paying jobs are great, but we all know that we stay at jobs that we enjoy doing. So how do we create enjoyment around some of these programs in those elementary years that make our kids want to grow up and say, yes, I want to do that. Yes, this is fun to me. Yes, I enjoy learning about that. So I would think more grants and opportunities to participate in programs, not just during school, but outside of school, creating those opportunities within employers where you can do job shadowing, that they feel like they're a part of it, and they're really getting that hands-on experience very early.
Exposure, yes, a beauty.
I would probably say, you heard in my bio, earlier on, my parents noticed that, hey, I like to take things apart, put them back together, that kind of thing. So as you mentioned as well, that was very early on. I grew up in the Metro Detroit area. They had a lot of different, obviously the Motor City, a lot of car manufacturing. So in school, we were exposed to different, opportunities to go see those plants, things like that. So we started early. The Detroit Area Pre-College Engineering Program was a big one for me. That's one of these programs that's very similar to what's going on here in Cincinnati, so I'm excited to see. Saturday mornings, we go learn from folks like the Gaskins, who were also in college at the time, or executives at the companies. That got us excited, right? You also mentioned about careers, lucrative options. Engineering was definitely one of those areas. So as a kid, you think, oh, I want to make money, what's a good way to do it? Go into engineering. So it's very positive. But I think the challenge, like we've also mentioned, was retention, staying. So that is the work that needs to continue. But early on, providing that excitement in kids was very important. I know it worked for me because this is what I do now after 21 years. So.
I think in a similar fashion, the same thing, that early exposure, the opportunities for young kids to see themselves, see representation of themselves and other people. Certainly for me growing up, my mom was a single mom and saw early on that I liked science. And so she just put those opportunities in front of me, did what she could. And so I think we need to do more of that. Programs like Girls in STEM at the University of Cincinnati, the water utility, we're working on a water university, to have that for third and fourth graders, to get them interested in water and understand that that is something that they can take with a STEM career and come work in the water utility industry. I think as we get older, I think cities can greatly benefit from definitely getting outside the box. Don't just hit the University of Cincinnati's, the Xavier universities, but travel up the road to the Wilberforce University, to Central State University, and be flexible and work with those schools. We recently had an opportunity to go to Central State to a job fair, and the employees came back and said, we don't want to go back to that job fair anymore. And I was like, why not? And they were like, well, it's not to the caliber of the other ones. Didn't seem like a lot of people were interested in our booth. And so then I went down the rabbit hole, well, what did our booth look like? Like, why didn't you go get the people to come to our booth? But you might have to work a little bit harder when you go into some of these areas, but that's okay, because we're still trying to get to the goal. But you don't get to just come back and say, we're not going back. We're going to partner with them to say, hey, this might be helpful if you had this, if you gave this opportunity to the students, if you helped drive them to come to the booths in some way. But we don't get to walk away. That's not an option. So I think sometimes we have to do the little bit of harder work to perhaps reach some areas, and certainly having more representation in those areas to make it happen.
So it's not only the exposure to and reaching back in an early start, but it's also making sure we're doing this in a regional way as well. Because it just doesn't just impact Cincinnati, but when we're talking about lifting the entire region, it's these moments that matter. And so back to exposure, I want to share a personal story here that changed my world. So BEST program. Building Enthusiasm for Science and Technology. I participated in that program as a high school student, and not that like engineering was even on my radar, but it was a moment where, in one of the activities that we did was put together a clock. And I'll never forget, we're soldering, and like, it was so cool, hands-on. And it was about that curiosity of being able to understand this is an opportunity. So absolutely more of those things in our community is what we need. All right. These questions I'm now going to direct individually. So, Tashana, this question is for you. What strategies have actually been successful in attracting and retaining diverse talent in STEM industries within urban environments?
Thanks for that question. More specifically, I'll have to go back to one of my previous titles as Chief Diversity Officer that I have for a system. And one of the things that, strategies that I really created there with trying to attract and retain?
Attract and retain.
Trying to think of the question, because that was long.
Yeah.
We did a lot of work around our medicine program, more specific to what Kathy mentioned earlier, with creating a partnership with universities and academia with the Meharry program. And so really going out to different HBCUs and universities and recruiting those individuals and having them come up to do a 6 to 8 week program within our organization to say, hey, Cincinnati is a great place that you would want to be. We do know that in Cincinnati, in medicine more specifically, there's not a lot of people of color, and that goes around for females and males. It's hard to find a physician of color in primary care. There's a lot in OBGYN, but some of those specialty fields, there's a lot of difficulty there. So we had a lot of intentionality in our recruiting process to partner those college students with deans and CMOs and take them through the day-to-day life of what that would be and what it feels like to be in Cincinnati and be a physician. And I think also giving them opportunities to see growth beyond their specialty. So you can be a senior leader, a chief officer of color, and just giving them exposures to different things. I think more specifically too, more related to how do we attract that urban. I think in the IT industry as a whole here in Cincinnati, and there's just not that many people of color that you're going to see in IT, leading the IT industry or even working there. And so some of the things that we were doing there is also working with our HBCUs, but also our schools, our Woodward High Schools and Hughes High Schools, to say, hey, there's an opportunity in the IT field. You may see yourself putting programs together, doing data and analytics. I think when I am recruiting for different positions, more specifically in analytics, because I do have a mathematics background, strong analytics, it's also hard to find people that have confidence in what they can do in mathematics. So helping people to understand different opportunities with a learning, excel and different things that are real teachable and transferable skills that they can use everywhere are things that we really hone in on. And I think also just giving people exposure to opportunities outside of, if you're working in housekeeping, you can do a job shadowing in the medicine field, right? And you can start up from working in, from a CRNA all the way up into a nurse practitioner, if that's what you want to do. So just expanding those skills and letting people see what those opportunities are.
Awesome, thank you, Tashana. Being intentional is something that is coming to mind.
Yes.
If we want to create opportunities for people of color, minorities, we have to make sure we are building relationships that are specific and identifying the places to do that. Kathy, this question is for you. How can urban policymakers, Vice Mayor, let's listen up here, urban policymakers and industry leaders collaborate to create inclusive STEM ecosystems that support innovation and entrepreneurship? Yeah, I didn't write these questions, by the way. These are experts, so.
How can they collaborate? You know, it's a challenge in that way, the policymakers and certainly working with other groups to collaborate to really make a change. You know, we've seen some of that, and I'll give you a couple examples. You know, we've tried to, at Waterworks, we have 92 classifications. And anywhere from certainly your engineers, your chemists, your lab techs, but we also have welders, carpenters, positions that really don't require a degree. And we struggle many times to plant operators. We don't need a degree to be a plant operator to treatment plant. But we struggle sometimes to find people to fill those positions. And so some of the challenges that come into play are when we go out to, you know, your Cincinnati States or groups like that, Diamond Oaks or whatever, they certainly have programs and they can create programs for us, but we lack in the path of how to get them into the city through the civil service process and that whole hiring process. And I think if policymakers could look at that a little closer and perhaps try to understand some of that, possibly remove some of those barriers so that we could have a direct line to get some of those new employees in the door, then perhaps that could be a collaboration that happens there. We often run into a lot of barriers in our very archaic policies. And I think the more we can move forward and modernize those policies and then collaborate, then that would be helpful. Because another challenge is, once we can bring in some employees who are in the STEM fields, who are diverse, who we certainly want to fold into our culture, some of the challenges that don't retain them are that we have these archaic processes. You know, certainly our younger employees want to know that you're progressive, that you're innovative, that you're on the leading edge, if not leading edge, right? They want to know that you're doing that, but they do not want to be bogged down with these archaic, we've always done it this way type approaches. And that is something that does not retain them. And so I think for policy makers and leaders in that area, the more you can understand that, and then perhaps remove some of those obstacles, reframe some of how we have to do that, I think that's going to be a big part where we can then extend that to collaborate with some other groups to bring more people in still.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for giving us another item to put on our list. But that's why I appreciate this panel, because it represents the diversity of industry. And, you know, I often say, even in government, we have to think about how are we innovative in the way that we think, the way that we respond, the way that we make decisions. And so thank you for reminding us of that. This question is going to be directed to Dr. Sangeeta. And this might be a long one, but what are some innovative approaches or best practices that employers and cities can implement to create a more inclusive and equitable environment for STEM professionals and aspiring innovators?
Okay.
I know. Kathy, we might go back to you on this one, but.
A good question. I think we're talking a lot about diversity here in STEM fields and industries. And one of the things that I would say, and I've always said this throughout my career, and especially now at Rotara, that it's a right thing to do, the fair thing to do. But I think the most important thing is, for business, you need to do this. And I have experienced this throughout my career. Being in aerospace, I was at GE Aviation for a very long time, and that's where I grew up. It's a very male-dominated field. And in tech at Amazon, same thing, very male-dominated. And I would inherit groups that were not really diverse at all, very low diversity. And by the time I would leave that job, go to the next job, within a year or two, we would have 50% diversity. So it's not like you can't have it. There are people there. You can improve diversity. And by the way, our organizations productivity, results, business results went up 100%, 100%. So there is a really high value in diversity of thought, diversity of innovation. So that is one thing I would say that all businesses and employers need to think about. Just like, what's in it for you? This is what is in it for you. And for innovators and entrepreneurs in Cincinnati area, what I would say is I am leveraging a lot of things that all of you, I'm sure, have had a hand to build those. And I slowly figured it out. I wish you could present those opportunities to say, these are some of the free things you can go get if you're an entrepreneur. Or this requires very little money because every startup is cash strapped. And so they're trying to figure out how to do stuff so they don't go buy things. So for example, Centrifuge. Centrifuge locally here, it's $100 membership for 1 year. And then you're a member forever. And they provide so many opportunities for startups. It has just been amazing. I've been leveraging Centrifuge forever. Second, I would say, Ready Cincinnati, Jobs Ohio. You can leverage that. If you can commit to growing jobs, you can actually get some grants. There is, for government contracts, there is an organization called PTAC. I had never done any business with business, so I didn't know how to. PTAC actually coaches entrepreneurs and small businesses for free, and they're awesome. I have learned so much in the process. I will eventually get to a contract because you know how government contracts work, they just take a long time. But I feel like there's so many things. Flywheel is another accelerator that I would say is focused on ESG. And I was one of the participants, and I saw mostly diverse people in that group of entrepreneurs, which is awesome. So I think one of the things I would recommend is that if these things are available for entrepreneurs, let's just put them in one place so they don't have to take 2 years to search them. And they're very beneficial. They'll just go up like this. So that's my recommendation.
I love it. And, I'm so excited because let me share this with you too. As a city, many of you are aware of our climate strategy through our Green Cincinnati plan. It's our carbon reduction across sectors. And so one of the things is also 4,000, and it's a plan that gets refreshed every 5 years. So we're on our current plan, 2023. And recommendations come from the community, not just like City Hall out to community. And so one of the recommendations is 4,000 newly trained green jobs by 2035. But this also includes entrepreneurs in that too, because when we think about climate change and sustainability, resilience, equity, tech certainly fits in that. When we're talking about how we build buildings and architects, when we're looking at electrification and solar panel installation, agriculture, and how AI certainly has a role to play in that. And so it's also the access to capital. So as I'm looking at the bankers in the room, this is all of that ecosystem in one place. And so Centrifuge has certainly been a great partner, and Flywheel. And so we need to do more of that. And as a city, leveraging our partners in ways that we can continue to invest there. Thank you for reminding us of that. All right, Abu, this question is for you. How can we best prepare the incoming workforce to lead the future?
Good question, very good question. So it's very critical because at this point, I've been in corporate America manufacturing about 21 years, 3 companies. And I do recruiting, hiring engineers right now in my current position. And so I think you mentioned that some of the newer folks, they have their intentions, they have things they like, but they get, when they get into the work field, they get stagnant, or they get told, hey, this is how we do it, and this is how it's gonna get done. And they're not able to flourish and let their new talents or their new skills that they just learned spend all those 4.5, 5 years of college to shine. So I think, I see that a lot of our folks are prepared, but I think what we need to do is work with the companies to make sure they're prepared to accept the new ideas. Because I can see it from, experience, there's not a lot of that. So I think there are opportunities in our colleges and universities, even for vocational schools. In our vocational schools and those careers need a lot of support. Because like you said, there are a lot of positions that can be filled. You don't have to be filled. But I think the skills are being presented to the students. I just think that when they come to corporate America, sometimes they get stifled. That's where we need to work and change. Companies are doing that. A lot of companies you see are committed. They're making their goals known. Some are not, and that's what we're all fighting with. And a lot of students will be fighting against that as they come into the field. But we have to continue our ARGs, our social resource groups. Those could be the African American ones. They could be any of our other races and ethnicities, women in STEM as well. That has to be implemented and shown to the students ahead of time that it's there and they're doing work. It's just there, they're not doing anything. It's not going to serve them. So I think that's the challenges on the corporate American side rather than the students. I see a lot of potential from that in that end.
Can I ask?
Absolutely.
I don't know if you guys have heard of 110 program. We are actually working in Gotara, we are working with Cisco on 110 program. This is where a bunch of, and I'm hoping some companies within Cincinnati may be members of that. So a bunch of large companies got together a few years ago, and they said that they would hire 1 million Black Americans in tech jobs over a 10-year period. So that's the 110 program. And so Cisco hires these cohorts every year of Black Americans, and many of them are from community colleges. And so they train them technically, internally for the jobs that they are getting, and we train them for business leadership so they're successful. And we have 100% retention of those people, and they're growing in the company and they're doing awesome. So I would love to see something similar like that with some of the companies. I'm hoping that Kroger, P&G, or maybe even GE Aviation are members of that. I think it's a great way to improve diversity.
That's incredible. And that was called Cisco's 110
Yeah.
program?
It's
Okay.
not Cisco, it's a 110 program of coalition of a bunch of companies.
Okay.
Cisco is one of the members.
Got it. Okay. Well, I would like to see who might be members around here. And if not, let's create it. Wonderful. Does anyone else want to respond? Any other thoughts? Okay. So thank you, because you're reminding us that supporting organizations and corporations are just as important. And so creating those resource group opportunities is going back to being intentional. We've all talked, I think you all mentioned this in your responses, education. Being a huge part in how we develop this kind of ecosystem and this pathway for young people to move into these careers. And so this is to everyone on the panel. What role do educational institutions play in promoting diversity and inclusion within STEM fields, and how can cities support these efforts? Yeah, so what role do educational institutions play in promoting diversity and inclusion within STEM fields, and how can cities support these efforts? Tashana, I think it was something you said, and sorry, out of you, reminding us that math is so critical early on. And so how do we develop more of that, those opportunities for young people when we're talking about all kinds of challenges and struggles that some families face? And we make sure young people are getting those skill sets early on.
I think that's where we go with the financial aspect, sponsorships. So the companies, the larger companies need to put their money where their mouth is, and follow up with that. Again, we have the universities. I do think that they should and they need to foster that learning environment, because as we've trained as kids, coming up through elementary, middle school, high school, we've always relied on our teachers, those above us to impart their knowledge on us. We get to college, there's a lot more freedom of thought, thinking, whatever it may be, but there's still guidance needed. And I think that since their colleges typically are the last step before you get into the real world, it has to be evident there that they are supporting and giving the help needed to all students. So from a college standpoint, it definitely needs to. And I know that colleges are going through a reckoning right now with a lot of the DEI initiatives that are being erased, unfortunately, but we have to continue to fight that. It's a very political and very intensive situation in terms of what they're doing to that term DEI and things like that. But we have those of us in corporate America, we have to advocate for our companies to continue to help and invest in the students, the corporate, the colleges, universities, and vocational schools. Because if they stop, it all stops, because colleges are for profit. They necessarily don't have to. We think they should.
I agree. I just think I have a 11th grader that's looking at colleges, and a lot of the grants that are available are in STEM fields. So I think that's great, and I think we need to continue that. But from an education perspective, when you go into a lot of these colleges, it's not diverse representation of teachers, right? And so I think, you know, it's great that we're promoting it and we want to give the funding to it, but I think they need to see it all the way around. It goes back to having diversity and representation of fields that those that want to actually get into will really critically help or make that decision for that student, even more important. Thank you. And so I would say that from an institution standpoint, from recruiting diverse representation of professors and those that are helping our students, even those that are in, admissions, really championing and giving opportunities and helping these people. They look like them. They feel like, yes, I can do this. So I think it also starts there.
Amazing. And as I'm sitting here listening, I'm thinking, has a global conversation happened with all the people at the table that affect and impact this ecosystem? Yeah.
I agree with the approach with the institutions. Certainly when I came through college in the chemistry department, University of Cincinnati, I didn't have any professors that looked like me. And I think it was only one or two students who looked like me, one of which was in the master's program. And so it was a challenge, and you didn't see a lot of representation that was there. But I think it's not only an institution thing, it's this partnership with the businesses. And give you an example from the water utility industry perspective. It's we want you to go into STEM programs in college, but then I don't see people who look like me in the industry, and where am I to go? And why do you want me to come here? And how will I retain? And how can I relate? And so it's more of those organizations, those businesses that then have an approach or a strategic plan that says we're going to be intentional in having more diverse people come into our industry. It was the pandemic, and everybody was going home to actually get an update on what was happening with the pandemic. So we were looking at the news for the pandemic, but what we saw was George Floyd, right? And so then all of these water utility industry organizations want to release their DEI statement, because we want to make sure that people, know that we're not aligned with what happened with George Floyd. What's the statement going to do? Like, where's the action? What are you going to do? And so my conversation was, don't send me yet another, as a board member, don't send me yet another statement that I need to review before you slap on the website. Where's your initiative that says we are now going to partner with HBCUs to educate them on the research that we do in the industry so that they can come to the table and get some of these research projects? And so that becomes a partnership with the industry, with the institutions. And I think it's more of that effort, not just on the institutional part, but where's the partnerships? Where are the other people who are raising their hand and saying, I'm in it to win it too, and here's what I'm going to do to move it middle.
Yes.
What I will add to that is there is a lot of work that needs to happen to recruit students into these fields. But once they graduate, they become successful in the working environment is equally important. And just last week, I was talking to Miami University students, and last night I talked to San Diego University students. And one of the things that they struggle with is they have all this theoretical knowledge, and they're excited to go to work, but there are a lot of things that they need to learn, and universities don't necessarily teach that. And so there is an opportunity to kind of have a couple of credits to talk about what does a work environment look like. So, for example, we have on the B2C side of our business, we have free advice that we provide to 32,000 members across 176 countries from 170 STEM experts who are like CTOs, VP of technology, and so on and so forth. And they get that advice within 24 hours. So if they're struggling with something, so we get a lot of questions about how to get internship. I've applied for a lot of jobs and I'm not getting interviews. What can I do to get interviews? And then once they are in work, things that they talk about, like, how do I get noticed? I don't get invited to some of these meetings. How do I get into the meetings? And so we are providing that kind of advice just in time for them. And I'm sure there are other resources like that to get them ready for work. That is also equally important. And it would be a huge waste for an individual and for the society for somebody to graduate and not be successful at work.
Absolutely. You're reminding me that it's those soft skills that count and systems that help to support that. So you're truly filling a gap. I think that's a great segue into this next question. And it's how can cities address systemic barriers that prevent underrepresented groups from fully participating in STEM industries or being successful in STEM industries?
Say that again. I'm the older one.
So how can cities address systemic barriers that prevent underrepresented groups from fully participating in STEM industries or fully being successful in STEM industries?
So I would probably just say that there could be a lot more support for, when I think of underrepresentation, I just don't think about minorities, but I also think about entrepreneurs as well that are underrepresented in the city. And I think about the challenges that they have with just barriers to, getting startup funds, right? Scaling their business, right? Entering into different spaces where, there may be challenges with getting patents or trademarks or things like that. So I think if there is some type of support for, entrepreneurs or underrepresented people to scale their business and to really help them with the business acumen that they need to be able to be successful in that, I think is great. Because I think a lot of people that like, oh yes, I love STEM, let me just think about something in the science or technology field. I want to scale a technology business, but they're still missing those critical skills of, financial acumen or complete business acumen. So creating more sustainability and programs and support around that would be ideal.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else?
You mentioned some of the skills that are lacking coming out of schools and things like that. That's very true. You go into a job, you think, hey, I got all of this theoretical knowledge, but how do I apply it to a business, a manufacturing company? For instance, I went to a manufacturing company and I went to go convert paper tile, who's going to teach me that, right? You expect an employer to do that, but there's the soft skills and things like that. And cities could probably help, provide weekend or weekday courses. They could be free. They could be where you come in and folks on the Chamber of Commerce or folks on some committees come and share their experience. Maybe that is a community outreach that way to help the younger folks. They have to be willing now to show up and do that, but that's an opportunity that we could explore.
Mm-hmm.
Regarding what Tashana said regarding the entrepreneurial side of that, I think the cities can do more of the hard work. And by that I mean, give an example. Many of you know we have a lead service line replacement program. We have lead lines we still need to replace. In the city, $200 million worth of lead lines that we need to replace over 10 to 15 years. I need engineers to be project managers. I need plumbers or contractors that have plumbers to do the work. Engineers. I've been into utility for 32 years. I do not have an African-American engineer. I cannot find one that will come. There's various reasons, but I do not have one. I've been the director since 2015, and that has been my goal, to at least have one before I get out of here. And so that's a challenge, you know, and I worry that even if I do get one, at least one, will they stay? Because that culture is such, right? That will they want to stay? So I'm going to struggle to even retain them when I get them. But on the entrepreneurial side, with these plumbers, we have 11 certified plumbers in that program, but I cannot get an African-American plumber. I cannot get that. And I had in my mind when we put this proactive program out here, that we were going to have plumbers representing the neighborhoods where we needed to do the work, right? And so early on, they came to us and they said, the number one reason why we're not coming to the city to do this work is we're small businesses. We cannot afford to wait as long as the city does to pay you. We usually pay our plumbers on Fridays. And so we're trying to overcome that with procurement, and they have some ideas where we can possibly get down to at least net 15. But other things that they've told us, well, we don't have the equipment. We don't know how to bid the projects. We don't know how to do the work. We've never seen this work before. And so when I say cities need to do the hard work, we are absolutely applying for grants at the state level. Perhaps the water utility can get the equipment that they can use. We're willing to train them. We have created videos of the work so they can see what the work entails. We're working with procurement, again, to figure out how we can pay them sooner. And so that's the hard work. Because we could sit back and keep saying, I don't have any plumbers, but I'm like, do not bring me that answer one more time, right? What is the solution? How are we going to step forward further to then help them and bring them on? Because we have to do that. And once we do that, you only need to do that a couple times. Because then it becomes what the city is extending themselves to help us, to grow us, to make it better opportunities for all. And so that's what we're trying to do. But it's a challenge sometimes, because it certainly is changing your culture inside, because we've always done it this way. Why do we want to do it like that now? You know, and in the case of the engineers, we have to change those cultures that make those employees want to stay once we get them.
Yes. That's why your leadership is so important.
That's right. That's right. She's a treasure. So we are at over time, but I want to conclude with this. You know, I'm also thinking about, I want to give a shout out to the Urban League and also the regional chamber supporting an initiative, Women in Tech. So I was at the first cohort graduation, and it's like giving people the opportunity to get these certification places where companies are needing, making sure they're then getting good jobs, and then we're supporting people in those jobs as well. So it's been an amazing time with you experts. And so as we wrap up and conclude, 30 seconds or less, any final words? Starting with Tashawn.
I would just say we all, thank you. We're sharing that microphone, sorry. I would just say we all have the ability to continue to make change in the industry, even as small as being an advocate or an ally and speaking up. So keep doing that.
What I would say is everybody in this room and everywhere around has an opportunity. Every time you meet an individual, you meet a leader from a company, you talk about this topic.
Right, yeah.
I would agree with that. There's a lot of opportunity and a lot of drive and hunger for STEM. Always has been and should continue. I think it's upon us to keep pouring into the young folks and then start to switch and change our thought process with our existing folks and corporations and things, and how we think about how we retain young folks. So, thank you.
And I would just add that you know, our time is now to choose courage over comfort.
Yes.
Not the comfortable space of just, we've always done it this way, but the courage to go forward and not go just forward, but further.
Yes.
And to not just be by yourself. Who else are you bringing with you? Who else are you lifting up? And so all of that is rooted in choosing courage over comfort.
All right, and with that, let's give our esteemed panelists a round of applause.
Any type of question?
That'd be a question for Delana, I think.
So if you've been to one of our sessions before, this is generally the part where we spotlight a group or an event going on in the city. So in June, I don't know if anyone's heard of Cincy AI Meetup for Humans. Kendra Ramirez and some other people do this great event monthly. So their June event, May is filled, but June is open, and there's a lot of conversation about AI. So we would definitely recommend that you register. She could not be here, so I'm going to stand in and make sure you register. The event is on Eventbrite, and if you're not even a little bit interested in AI, I would definitely recommend that you try to learn, because AI is taking over. Maybe if you don't know it, half the emails you probably received today, somebody probably chat GPT'd it. So it's important that you get into what is happening with the future. So we're going to take about a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back. Then Whitney will lead a deeper dive. So our panelists, they are welcome to say, we don't know everyone's schedule, but we'll take a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back and we'll get into the deeper dive. We can have questions and start how we can develop solutions. So I'm going to hold you to 5 minutes. We'll be back. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.